That's great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Earth Day Happy Hour. We're just going to wait a few minutes here as more people sign on. Thank you for coming. We know that you're busy. Hopefully you got some wine going. We're going to tell you it's in our run of show to pour your Grenache Blanc, but I would go ahead and pour it now as we wait.
Agree.
If you don't have the Grenache Blanc open or something, pour something out. But hopefully it's the Alta Colina wine we sent you.
Yes. There's no wrong answer. Whichever one you open, or all three. Get wild.
That's right.
Yeah. I think it tastes pretty good.
Tastes great.
Hi, Esther. Thanks for showing up. Hey, Gabe. Mary Beth, nice to see you on here. Molly, Pat's here. Wendy. Awesome.
All right.
Hi, friends.
Things are happening.
All right, GV, we have 30 cases left.
Ooh, I like it.
I know. Yeah. It is a shame we can't successfully Zoom from the vineyard. That would be ideal
Yeah.
someday.
So everybody's now looking at this picture, presumably.
Yes.
Let's talk.
And everyone can hear you.
Bob, say something embarrassing.
That's easily done. I'll try and stay back on that one. So I should describe what they're looking at. You're 500 feet above the Model Citizen Roussan block, which is at the very bottom there. You can see the barn where my daughter hangs out. Off to the right of that barn, you can see 50 miles. And just to the left of the barn and kind of stretching into the background is what we dub it the toasted slope. It's a planting of Syrah in that area. And then we tucked in back toward the trailer pond, which I suspect you might have noticed, a nice little pond with the trailers around it. We have a Morvet block, which we've yet to name. And then at the top, sort of covered by Alta Colina, is 40 acres of woods that are part of our never used and never visited vineyard.
Where is our property line in relation to that logo?
Almost to the top of the screen, actually. We almost own all of that, not quite. It's a habitat for poison oak, rattlesnakes, and mountain lions as the main denizens of that part of the world.
And cuter ones.
Soft and cuddly
Owls.
things. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I don't go there much.
Owls.
Got to be tough to be a winemaker.
That's the takeaway. Exactly.
So yeah, I think we should just get started, guys. People are going to roll in. I've gotten some emails of people running late. So yeah, I just think, let's just get going. And by the way, those, we already talked about, so we're going to be sending them this later. So yeah, I think we just maybe get started.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Stacy Jacob, and my colleague Mike Dawson has been talking to you guys. We are Solterra Strategies. We're the public relations agency for Alta Colina. We were actually just chatting before this call, and we actually don't remember how long we've been working together. It's been at least somewhere between 9 and 10 years. It's been such an awesome helping the Alta Colina brand and the Tillman family through this amazing legacy, and we can't wait to share their story with you here today. I know, Bob, you were super excited about wanting to showcase the vineyard. Thank you for this great photo. If only the internet was better out in the vineyard. You were telling us that it's this beautiful showcase of wildflowers right now, which I'm sure we'll touch upon, but I'm just trying to imagine. I know everybody has seen how beautiful the wildflower scene is right now in California, and we love the rain because a lot of times in the Alta Colina world, you guys like to dry farm as much as possible. So Mother Nature has been really blessed and given us some great rich resources this year that we can't wait to talk about in honor of Earth Day overall. So I know we'll touch upon today, we're going to touch upon a little bit the legacy of sustainability and organic farming there at Alta Colina. We're going to hear a little bit about the family vision of their goals, and you see 2 generations right here, and their awesome winemaker Molly's going to walk us through the great lineup of wines. If you haven't already, please do pour yourself a glass of wine. It is 5 o'clock somewhere. And that's what this is about. It's happy hour time, right? We highly recommend the Grenache Blanc. I think, would you just saying that you have only 30 cases left of this, Maggie? Is that what you were telling us?
We do. Yeah,
Yeah.
these are
Oh my goodness.
it's both the ones that we're sharing today. We have 30 cases of Grenache Blanc and only 17 of Viognier. They are flying.
Oh my God.
Wow. Well, you guys are very special that you are getting some of the very rare finds. And really, that's what makes Alta Colina really so amazing. I mean, this is a direct to consumer brand for the most part. I know Maggie works really hard to get on these amazing lists of various restaurants, but Alta Colina is right in the heart of Paso Robles in the Adelaida district. And we invite you to visit this amazing estate. These guys are so dedicated to what they do. Bob, I know he knows probably every single vine and every single block meticulously from all the work that they've done. It's really a family affair from the various generations. And of course, Molly coming in to really help. I think it was so cool that Bob several years ago said, in order to protect my legacy and help it pass along, it's my job now to help make sure that this brand is in really good hands. And so I know that, Bob, you've done a lot to really put that foresight in place. Before I turn it over to the team, I just want to give a quick shout out to the trailer pond. We're going to talk about that. If you have not experienced this amazing place to stay in the vineyard, it really is something very, very special. Last but not least, a couple of housekeeping pieces. We are going to be watching the Q&A. Mike and I will be monitoring and talking to everybody as we go through the process here today. If you go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A section, it will allow us to make sure that we get those all recorded for folks as we are recording this. So folks that aren't with us, or if you want to review the conversation later on, and if we put it in the chat, unfortunately, it doesn't always get translated from that perspective. So without further ado, Mike, did I miss anything from your perspective?
No, that's it. Yeah. So just if you have any questions, just hit me up in the chat and or Q&A so we can just track it.
Awesome. Well, it is really my honor and pleasure to introduce Maggie Tillman.
Hello, I'm Maggie. That's my father, Bob, our winemaker, Molly, who's also a longtime friend. We are really excited to get to do this with all of you. Again, if you are not drinking wine, join the party. It's definitely 5 o'clock in Chicago, which is not that far away. So I think you should go for it. A little bit about Alta Colina. We're 20 years in. This is our 20th anniversary, which honestly surprised us a little bit. It was kind of at the very end of last year. We thought, wait a minute, that feels like a big deal. We bought this raw 130-acre piece of property 20 years ago. There were no vines, no buildings. We've developed it from scratch. And Bob will talk more about his vision and sort of how that came to be, and our values and what we really prioritize in terms of our farming approach these days. We're very much in the camp of you grow wine, right? Like the vineyard is really where it comes from. And Molly, her background is vineyard, soil science. Bob and Molly share a love of vineyard, and everything we do comes through that lens. It's really at our core and really important to us. So Earth Day is a perfect moment for us to kind of pause and just, I don't know, celebrate what we find important and close to our hearts. Anyway, corny, apologies. So a little bit about how I ended up doing this. This was not my plan. I love my parents very much. Working with them every day was like not what I was envisioning, but I've worked day to day with Bob for over a decade at this point. I went to college in New York City. While there are plants, it's not something we talk about or pay attention to or think about farming wise. And my idea was, okay, I sort of have this family connection with the Central Coast. I can land there for a couple years. Eventually I'll go to grad school, go on to do something totally different. And we were reminiscing a minute ago. I landed in Paso knowing nothing about wine, knowing nothing about Paso Robles, and promptly applied for a job I was deeply unqualified for with Stacy Jacob, who was running the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance at the time. And she dutifully and responsibly rejected me. And I was able to really get to know the community, the region, and the wines by working in tasting rooms. So when I moved here in 2008, we did have vineyard, we were farming, Bob was making wines, we were renting space from the neighbors, we didn't have any buildings on the property yet, and I was working at other wineries. And every year I'd think, maybe I'll do grad school next year. And then 5 or 6 years in, I thought, let's stop pretending that's what's going to happen. And I am now all in. So 15 years later, here we are. Maybe it's 14 years.
You did go
And
to
you
grad
did go to
school.
grad
And I
school.
did go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
grad school. And I did go to grad school, but for wine. So, you know, it all came full circle in a way. So I'm going to pass it off to Bob, who's going to talk a little bit about our farming approach. And again, you can see Bob and Molly, our crack winemaking team. And then our entire team is up at the top. We're a small operation. This is literally everyone who works with us, from vineyard to tasting room and in between. And then there's a really questionable photo of my father and I during harvest before I cut my hair. So take it away, Bob.
All right. Thank you. So I'm going to, first of all, just do a little geography before I explain where we are. Many of you may know, but just in case you don't, Paso Robles is halfway between LA and San Francisco. We are 22 miles from the Pacific Ocean. And Alta Colina lies in the Coast Range about 4 miles west of downtown Paso Robles. And interestingly enough, I just looked it up, we're 900 feet higher in elevation. So we gain, as you exit Paso Robles, driving to our winery, you gain 400 feet, but then from the winery, which is, as the crow flies, literally 100 yards horizontally from the vineyard, but vertically it's 500 feet. It's
a big hill.
So there's a gigantic hill right behind the winery. The picture you were looking at before, where you saw the barn, if you threw a rock off to the right, you could probably hit the roof of the barn or the winery. So expand a little bit on the history. We purchased this property in 2003. At that time, it was just virgin forest and grassland. As you looked at that previous picture, wherever you saw vines, that was grassland. And of course, the forest is still there. It's pretty much untouched all these years later. We spent a couple of years to develop before we could ever plant a vine. It was, in retrospect, kind of amazing. We had to build a road up the hill that had a little 4-wheel drive track that was a little bit scary off to the right, like almost a sheer cliff. We now have you can drive your Porsche up there should you want to.
Slowly.
A little dusty.
We don't want you to chip the paint with rocks, but you can.
So I had to get the road, getting power up there, which was, that's a whole webinar in and of itself there, dealing with public utility. So I won't go into that right now. Plus, I don't like to cuss over the internet. We had to drill a well at the bottom of the hill in order to have a chance of finding water, and then pipe it up the mountain, which is sort of a small municipal water district that we put in. We put in a couple of miles of fencing in order to protect the future vines from deer. And then we had to put in a trellis. So anyway, all of that took almost 2 years. And during that time, all I did was write checks and work my butt off on a mountaintop somewhere. But in 2005, we planted 31 acres, about 41,000 vines, all Rhone varieties. They did well. They're very happy here. The climate and the soils, they don't realize we've speared them 8,000 miles from home. We got our first harvest in 2007. Took a couple of years in barrels, etc. And in 2009, we finally were able to sell a bottle of wine to somebody, which was a great moment. That's about the time Maggie began to help us out. She sort of helped set up a tasting room and get us going. Along those times, we spent 8 years at our neighbor's place. It was in those days Villicano Winery. Today it's Villicano Winery and Refined Distillery, should you be in the neighborhood. Very small operation. We kind of got started, and then in 2014 we were able to build a winery building on our property at the bottom of the hill, as I've described to you. So we're in a situation now where we are a state winery, and it's a very serious way. We grow it all here. We make the wine here, and we sell 95% of it right here as well. So that's sort of some background for you. So let me just say a few words about conservation and sustainability and all of that kind of stuff. That's also, we could have 2 or 3 webinars on that. So I'll try and shorten it up. First on water, let me just touch that very briefly for you. 4 or 5 years ago, I had gone through every technical water monitoring gadget known to man and found that virtually none of them really worked. However, 4 or 5 years ago, we put in something called a stat flow monitor, which actually works. It allowed us to cut our water usage by about a factor of 3 and make the vines even happier than they had been before. A long story, which if you're interested, I'm happy to take you through. Just a sort of a by the way, this morning I checked our well. I have a monitor that measures the water depth in the well, and we're sitting at about 93 feet right now.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
When the well was drilled 20 years ago, it was at 95 feet. So it's actually, thanks to this wonderful winter that we just had, done a great job for us. And then just briefly to talk a little bit about our farming, what we do there. We practice organically. We're not registered, but everything we do in terms of our farming practices are organic in nature. We do no-till, so we're not exposing the undersurface of our soils to the atmosphere. We keep a perennial cover crop so the soil virtually is never exposed to the air without some sort of organic matter on it. We do compost teas, things like that. Just a few words. So no-till sounds like no big deal. So what? It's actually a huge deal. There's estimates. There's a lot of debate about this stuff, so I don't want to get too exact. But
Hey, Bob, can you explain where the cover crop is? Just that it's the space between the vines.
yeah, basically it's what you see. You see the Daniel standing there with his pruning trimmings. All that green stuff is there. It's basically native grasses. We learned in the very first year we tried planting some very special University of California seed mix, and it lasted about 2 months before the natives overwhelmed it. So now we just let the natives overwhelm everything. And it turns out they're perfectly suited to the site in that they push at the first hint of rain, providing erosion control. And they shut down about 3 weeks after the last rain and consume no water during the actual serious growing season. So they're really great for that thing. Yeah, so I was going to talk a little bit about the agriculture. It's estimated that agriculture contributes about 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and a substantial fraction of them, something on the order of half of that comes about from the oxidation of organic matter that's laying around on the ground. So if you run through there with a plow, and underground we have sequestered a great deal of organic matter by not tilling it. You go through there with a plow, turn that up, let it see oxygen, and it will oxidize and contribute nicely to our atmosphere. So we gain a lot of reduction. Something on the order of like 2% of the world's greenhouse gas could be eliminated should we stop tilling ground all over the place. And for growing something like grapes, it's really natural. It's easy to do.
If you ever are at a trade event with growers and you really want to throw a grenade at Q&A, just say the phrase till or no till.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't recommend that, but anyhow.
Maybe we don't recommend it, but it works every time.
So we monitor the organic matter in our soils, and we're running around 5 to 6% organic matter, which is literally 3 to 5 times more than typical farmland. So that's just a whole lot of organic matter that's now sequestered underground. It's not creating carbon dioxide, and it helps hold water, and it's just a very good thing. It provides food for the soil biome, all those bacteria and fungi that are in the soil that are contributing to the symbiosis with the roots of our vines. So that's kind of the general picture. I should mention we have 85 acres of woodland, which are growing nicely, especially after all this rain. So tons of carbon getting turned into lignin and stacked up in tree trunks out there. And then all the usual sort of Earth Day things about half of our energy use is solar. I would love to have it be 100%, but we pay as we go, and I can't quite pay for more panels right now.
How many panels do we have at this point?
About 120 or something like that.
Yeah.
We recycle our wastewater. We have lighter bottles than we used to have. We got rid of the tin capsules, so we're chipping away on the small ways as well. So anyhow, that's a brief overview of Alta Colina's effort to do better on the environment.
Yeah.
We've found over time that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So things like naked neck, lighter glass, that's something that very few people notice, if anyone, and the difference that it makes both to the bottom line and just to the amount of waste and carbon footprint when it comes to shipping. You all are in this conversation. It's something that we sort of thought, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? And even when it comes to farming and sort of the use of our land. So we mentioned briefly the trailer pond, which is our vintage trailer campground on the vineyard. And this is a really good example of us seeing an opportunity. We had space that was unused and there's very little infrastructure. And very serendipitously, we made friends with some folks who at the time, their business revolved around these vintage camper trailers. And we thought, we have this beautiful property. We'd love to share how we farm it. We'd love to sort of create this wine experience for people who are interested in, getting a little dust on the Porsche or whatever. And the trailer pond is a really, for the right crowd, it's an incredibly fun experience. It's one that ties in beautifully to farming and the wines. And it's just a really low footprint accommodation option. And we genuinely took a section of road. The tractor never passed on that road. Around that pond, it was just available space. And I think we always look for those sorts of opportunities of how can we take what we already have and use it more efficiently. And I think the trailer pond is a really good example of that. And it's also adorable and looks great on Instagram. So that's been something we've been doing for the last 7 years. And then there's Honey, the German Shepherd, with her little patoots in the air.
It also looks adorable on a can.
Oh, it's true.
And talking
Thank you,
about
Molly.
sustainable packaging, we have these super cute cans. I don't know if you guys can see them, but my best friend from growing up did a watercolor of all of the trailers. And so we can a rosé. The top, they're 4-pack biodegradable carriers. We just sell them at the winery. But again, it's just a nice kind of different sustainable packaging and looks adorable.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we're sipping on wine. I'd love to have Molly jump in a little bit and talk a little bit about her history and how she ended up part of the Alta Colina team, and talk a little bit about the Grenache Blanc, and do throw any questions in there.
Yeah, I just want to real quick before we move on to Molly, which is my favorite part because she's going to go over some wines. Sustainable, all you travel writers that I think that are joined us, that sustainability, sustainable travel is really hot right now. And you can take a train to Paso and get Ubered in to Alta Colina's trailer pond and have a super low footprint and have amazing wine, and they can set up food for you. I'll do the selling after this, but it's just an amazing and so on trend and so ahead of its time that I had to be the PR guy right now and mention all that stuff. So sorry, Molly. Let's get to the wine. Also, that was a huge gopher, and that's their dog, right? Honey is a dog.
Yeah.
Also, where's the Porsche? Who has a Porsche among us? I don't even know anyone.
Not in the us.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no,
Sorry.
definitely not us.
Speaking of porches, just,
We have a porch, not a Porsche,
It's
but
true.
we do have that. Well, I will go into each of the wines separately. I'll just give a little bit of overview of kind of how I got here and what I kind of attempt to do here. So as Maggie mentioned, she and I have been friends for a long time. And I've gotten to know Bob over the years by all of the seminars that we were seeing each other at, because we're both like nerds at heart. And I spent a lot of time hanging out with Maggie, just drinking wine up in the vineyard and overlooking at sunset. And it was just always like taken aback, because I think you got a sense of it from that first picture. Obviously, pictures don't do justice, but it's just these two super dramatic hillsides that come together where that trailer pond is, just 30 acres of gorgeous land. That's just breathtaking. And when you turn around and face the other way, you can see all of the east side Paso, all the way out to the other mountains. And then you get to see up north, like way past 101. So it's just this amazing view of the entire area. I kind of feel like you're in this aerial view just by being up there. And so, Mags and I spent a lot of time, like I said, just kind of hanging out, drinking wine, staring at vines. And I remember a while ago, Maggie made a comment of like, oh, well, maybe you should be our winemaker. I was like, oh, well, that would be a dream come true. But we never really thought it was like a reality. And then I was just in a place in my life where I was kind of ready for a transition, as was Bob, and we got to talking. And yeah, it just came to be that I was able to come over in March of 2020. So right before the world ended.
Totally normal onboarding.
It was great. I got to work for like 8 days and then the world shut down. So that was cool. But tying it back is really the vineyard is the crown jewel of this property. As Maggie mentioned, I was earth and soil science major at Cal Poly, thought I was going to go into sustainable organic viticulture, ended up getting sucked into the winery and the winemaking track. But I've also always been really fortunate to work for wineries that had estate vineyards. So I've always been able to kind of walk out the door and be in the vineyard. And my husband farms for Topless Creek. So we were just like always tons of vineyard conversations around. And so coming onto Alta and knowing that we had just this prized possession of the vineyard, my job as a winemaker is really just not to mess it up. So I just throughout my years, I'm just not somebody that likes to add a lot of things to wine. I don't necessarily use the term like a natural winemaker or making natural wine. But if there's not a problem, why try to fix it? So the grapes are coming in. As long as we're doing our job in the vineyard, we're farming right, we're making the right picking decisions. And it's great because we have 31 acres. So I can personally walk through every single block in about 2 to 2.5 hours. So we're really spend a lot of time up there. Myself and our vineyard manager, Daniel, who you saw in that previous picture, we're meticulously walking every block, tasting, sampling, making picking decisions. So as long as we're getting that fruit to the winery, looking good, the yeast are already present on the grapes and they are proceeding with the fermentation. There's not really not that much that I have to do except just kind of monitor and make sure everything's going well. We do have a very high elevation vineyard site here. So most of our plantings are between 15 and 1800 feet. And so it does provide a lot of intensity in our fruit. So I think one of my main jobs is kind of tannin management as far as the wines are concerned, and not over extracting and not staying on skins too long. So I want to leave our fermenters with a balanced wine. And by fermenters, mostly we're fermenting in 1.5 ton plastic bins called 48S's. So we're really just like bringing it back here. We have about 4 tanks that we can ferment in. But really, I use each of those tiny vessels as its own experimentation vessel. So if we harvest a block and say I have 4.5 tons, I'm like, that's great because I can have 3 1.5 ton experiments. So I play around with them. And now through that, I've really been able to kind of learn the vineyard and figure out like a few tricks and techniques to kind of maximize what each of the block gives us. So it's been really, really fun project. And yeah, and I'm just so lucky to be surrounded by these guys because literally just stepped into pure passion by coming to Alta Colina. And in the wine industry, it's a lot of hard work, physical manual labor, but it's really that passion for wine that drives all of us. And we wouldn't do what we do if we weren't passionate about it. So I think if you ever look around and you're the most passionate person at a place, then it's time to go. And so here, that would never be the case. Everybody's here because they love it. We love the vineyard, and yeah, it's a really fun project. So anyways, let's get into the wines a little bit because
Maybe I should tell a little story right here.
oh, please. I love stories.
Off script.
Molly didn't really tell you her background. She came from very nice, very professional, very fancy wineries.
It's beautiful.
And so she's come here as sort of an overgrown garage operation, possibly. But one of my favorite things was when she was talking about our 1.5 ton fermenters. They're plastic. They're really snazzy, I think.
It's
But
the finest food grade plastic.
yeah, but in 2021, was that the year? We had
at
fruit,
risk.
we ran out of fermenter capacity.
Mhm.
So an old friend of ours who we've been selling fruit to for many years, his, he loaned us, I don't know, how half a dozen, seven.
No, I know.
Basically, imagine a really nice plastic food grade fermenter. Replace that with some plywood that's been bolted together with brackets and then lined with a plastic bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raisin bins are what they call them.
At any rate, there was a little bit of moaning and groaning when that happened, but I got a real kick out of it myself. So
Yeah.
anyway, you
Mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Molly clearly also got a kick out of it.
We called that Harvest the Fast and the Furious because literally all of our fruit came in at the same time. And all of a sudden we looked around, we're like, where are the rest of our bins? We're like, oh, we don't have any.
You're
So,
using all of them.
Yeah.
Like normally during harvest, it's like at a restaurant where you assume you'll turn the table.
yes.
We assume we'll turn the fermenter. That did not happen in 2021.
No.
So the raisin bins rescued us.
Yes, they did.
Much to Molly's joy.
Yeah, much to my
Hey,
chagrin.
Bob, while we have you, so Gabe asked a really poignant question. First and foremost, has anyone ever said that you sound like John Goodman? That's kind of awesome. But moving on to Gabe's
John
awesome
Goodman.
other question. Why Roans? You know, I think I love hearing this.
Why Roans?
Yeah,
Well,
It tastes
so
good.
yeah, well, yeah. So
they do
this,
well.
this project took 34 years in gestation. And during those 34 years, my wife and I went through several series of loving. We started off with cabs and we were living in the Bay Area at the time. Then we went through a serious Zen phase and then we discovered Roans. And when the 34 years came to an end and we actually got started, we were in a Rhone phase. And it was very clear that we should grow what we like to drink. And to be honest, I haven't regretted it. That phase is 20 years in and I'm still digging it. Yeah, that's why.
But also too, you're also on trend in terms of Paso Robles at that time because they were starting to figure out, and just a few people
That's
that
the main
Roans
reason
do
we're in Paso.
extremely well in Adelaida, especially. And
Yeah.
throughout Paso.
The main reason we're in Paso is because we wanted to grow Roans. And I mean, like I said, they don't realize we've spirited them 8,000 miles. And that's a good thing. They grow well here.
Cool.
All right.
What
Yeah.
are the Roans?
Yeah.
Molly,
So
you
the
take care of
varietals
it.
that we do grow right now, we have Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and Petite Syrah, which is our, Rhonish.
Depending on who you ask.
Depending on who you ask. And then on the whites we currently grow, and we do single varietal Grenache Blanc, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, and we're just about to add Picpoul Blanc this year as well. So we have 31 acres that we're farming organically, and there's literally no more plantable acreage. Well, I think we just found like a quarter of an acre that we think we can plant, and we're going to do like a tiny hand farmed high density experiment because why not? But we noticed that we had a lot of Grenache. So you'll see we really love Grenache. It's one of my favorite varietals. But we have been having a little bit too much each year. So as Bob mentioned, we do still sell fruit from the vineyard. So we take about 2/3 of the vineyard, sell about 1/3. And our goal is really kind of an organic growth to get to 90% of the vineyard. So we will grow as we have more tasting room traffic and convert more people to wine club. Then we take in a few more tons each year. So we're not trying to kind of move the needle too fast to have an inventory problem. But we did notice that we've been selling a lot of Grenache. And so we're taking 1 acre out of our Grenache Blanc. We virus tested it, shockingly, totally clean. And so we're going to graft Picpoul Blanc onto that this year, and we'll have some available for next year's harvest. So we're really excited about that. Getting into the Grenache series a little bit too. Well, I came from making Bordeaux and Rhone varietals, but the Rhones always had my heart. So again, coming onto this project felt pretty natural because I just love Rhone varietals, and I specifically love Grenache. So we do a Grenache Rosé, 100%. We do a Grenache Pet Nat. So it's a Grenache Rosé Pet Nat. You can see here that we bottled in the middle of harvest, when a crown cap in a Grolsch bottle. So this guy's pretty fun. Keep them coming, Maggie. We do a carbonic Grenache. So 100% carbonic maceration. This is Grenache that's left whole cluster in a sealed tank for 4 weeks prior to pressing. And that can be served as a chilled red. you notice the packaging on that is very different than kind of our normal lineup that you see here. And we did that for a reason, just because if you guys have had carbonic wines, the style is so wildly different than a big high elevation Syrah or GSM. And so we wanted to put that at something different rather than just having our label and say carbonic Grenache, because we didn't want to kind of trick people. So, you know, we have some people that it's just not their cup of tea that love our huge, huge wines. But then even some of those people love it because they go, wait a second, I can have a cold red in the middle of 100-degree summer. We just had our pickup parties last weekend, and there was a couple, and they said they have no AC in their house, but they live in Torrance. And so they just have appetizers. They have a floating appetizer table. So they have appetizer and wine in their pool every evening. And they just like stand up to here and drink carbonic. I was like, I love
Literally
you
a
guys.
floating table. I wasn't tracking. That's amazing.
Yeah. And when my first carbonic I ever made, carbonic Grenache, and I was like doing my tasting notes and like pairs with, and I literally just wrote floaties in a pool.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, come on, what else do we need to put here? So pretty fun. And then you saw our canned rosé out of Grenache, and we do our GSM, and occasional years I will do 100% Grenache. So just tying back around, you can't tell I love Grenache and round varietals. Anyways, let's get back to the wines because we've been trying, I think, for a while. So this is our Grenache Blanc 2022. Just released and apparently almost sold out. I guess we have 30 cases left. So this wine is interesting. This wine has, well, I like to say me coming on here is not a wine revolution, it is an evolution. So when I came on, Bob loved to tank ferment Grenache Blanc. I had come from making Grenache Blanc for a long time, and through a lot of experimentation had really loved to do neutral barrel fermentation. And so I know the way to Bob's heart is to prove it with a trial. So the first year we did 50-50 tank fermented and neutral barrels, and we actually bottled 2 of them separately, but we were all just blown away by the barrels. And so we've kind of changed the program. So this is 100% fermented in neutral oak. Normally, this one is 100% Grenache Blanc. I'm going to blow up your slide there. I'm sorry.
Guys, fact check.
I'm sorry. But I also like, as you can tell, I like to experiment and trial and try and figure out what works best for the vineyard. And so I thought, you know, let's try to harvest the Grenache Blanc earlier this year. I thought we were going to have a little more crop than we did. So I thought, oh, I'll take a portion of it and do an early harvest, and a portion of it is more of like a little later. But we ended up harvesting everything as the early one, as the early pick. So I was trying to kind of like drive the alcohol down and obviously keep that natural acidity. But when the finished wine came out, it was just like, I really liked it, but it was a little lean with pretty high acid. And so I wasn't 100% thrilled with it. And I just like grabbed barrel samples of everything we had, and I just hung out at the blending table. And I decided that a half a barrel of Roussanne and a half a barrel of Viognier blended in there. So they each come in at 8%, like fleshed out the whole mid palate and just really brought like the weight that I wanted to this wine without getting in the way of like the delicate Grenache Blanc aromas and flavors. So I know most of you are professionals, and I personally hate when people tell me what's in the wine, but in case you wanted to know my tasting thoughts, I love this Grenache Blanc. It has honeydew melon, d'Anjou pear. I get like almond blossoms and citrus blossoms, and even a little bit of Meyer lemon. But it has this like, it's lean and clean with this bright acid, but as you can see, that mid palate kind of brings that creaminess. So this is all fermented and aged on its lees. I go in and I do batonnage. So I stir up every barrel once a week for the first couple months. And then it's bottled after about 4 months.
Yeah, this is a 2022. So we do a range of things when it comes to our cold wines. And we do have a few that are quicker turnaround, lighter, brighter. You know, we want to get them in people's hands sooner, and Grenache Blanc always kind of leads that charge.
So If you have all three open, we'll just go right into the 12 o'clock high. Bob, do you want to tell us a little bit about your naming on 12
The
o'clock
12
high?
o'clock high. Well, it's kind of a nerdy one.
No.
With you? We're shocked.
So when we planted this vineyard, we endeavored to set the road directions to the southwest. Essentially, what that accomplishes is a little bit more morning sun and a bit less afternoon sun. And Molly's referred to our high altitude and the intense sunlight we have up there, and that particular technique works pretty good. It tends to balance the two sides of the vine. But some of the slopes are so steep that if you did that, your tractor would just roll over on you. So we had to go on the fall line. And it turned out that the Viognier was one of those blocks. So, and that fall line is due north-south. So that's where the name originally came from, in that the road direction was due north-south, and that 12 o'clock, that vine, the sun was centered right over the top of that vine.
And our tasting room manager, Emily, a thing we never had registered, but it's if our vineyard map were a clock, it's at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, if you look at the map up on the screen right now, at the
Done.
very
Just
top,
landed.
pointing vertically, is 2.5 acres of Viognier dubbed 12 o'clock. Yeah, that's the one.
And it's also block 12.
And it's blocked.
I
See,
never thought of that till this moment.
I didn't either.
you can tell a lot goes into the naming
Right.
process.
Oh, I love it.
And a lot of times we're just too lazy. So Grenache Blanc, we just call Grenache Blanc.
As it should be though.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm
The
open
ones
to a
we
name.
name, the ones we name, there's a reason for the name, and
You guys have almost worked through the entire family and you've got the
Yes.
vineyard stuff. So we feel
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's okay to have a few.
exactly.
Um,
I did get this one right with
okay.
the blend, right?
we are 100%
Okay,
Pinot.
Okay, good.
So again, getting back to kind of my style on this wine, when Bob and I, first sat down when I came on, and we were kind of talking about how we make different wines. In 2020, it kind of did, okay, let's do a Molly pick and a Bob pick. So we had 2 different picks. And I liked that wine a lot. I didn't feel like I got it exactly where I wanted it. And so in 21, I said, okay, I want to keep going. I want to keep doing a Molly pick and a Bob pick, but I also wanted to add this other layer to it. So Viognier as a grape is obviously super expressive. The easiest way to get all of those aromas and flavors is to let it hang. So Viognier is a well trended to real viscous, kind of higher alcohol. Like you see Viognier is at 15.5% alcohol, which is a bit scary to me. I'm very
I was like,
happy
what
that
is
this one
ours?
is at 13.9. I know, I was like, double check that. It usually comes in below 14. But anyways, in our Viognier block, what I wanted to try to do was an early pick. But then the problem with Viognier, if you pick it too early, is you get like banana runts out of it. And which is like nobody, like you put your nose in banana.
Genuinely,
We don't want that in our wine.
no one likes banana runs.
No, they're the only things people leave out.
Yeah.
So and definitely not wanted in wine. But my thought was, okay, I know those aromas and flavors are in those skins. They're just for whatever reason, they don't come out yet. And because they don't come out with that lower sugar. And because we're direct pressing everything, we don't have enough contact time to get those out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to bring the fruit in, do pigeage, so foot stomp the whole clusters, put some dry ice, and put lids on the vessels and leave them in a cold room overnight, and then press them the next day in hopes that I would be able to get higher natural acidity and lower sugar, lower alcohol, but get really effusive aromas. So in this block, we have a section that's cane pruned and a section that's fir pruned. So I thought, why not? Why don't we do an early pick skin contact for both of those sections? So for our 220 cases, I picked this one block 4 different times. But again, it's kind of brings back to how amazing it is to have an estate vineyard. if we were to ever contract fruit and say we want 4 tons picked 4 times, they would like turn us
Yeah.
away, you know,
If
never.
one of our grape customer asked for that, we
Yeah,
would just
no.
say no.
I mean, I would straight up say no.
Yeah,
Bob might say yes because he's so nice, but I would just say no.
it's his only fault.
So anyways, I feel like with this Viognier, it was kind of like hitting the nail on the head. I was finally able to get what I really wanted out of it. And it was really interesting because actually when we tried all those components separately, there was one lot of the skin contact that was like, I really like this. But the other one I was kind of like, oh, okay, like I kind of achieved what I wanted, not totally. And then the different pick levels, but when you put them all together, it was like the perfect combination. And so this wine, where the Grenache Blanc is like 4 months in barrel, this wine is about 16 months in barrel. So I leave all of the individual parts separate for about 11 months, blend before harvest, and then leave them together to kind of harmonize for another 6 months or so, 6-7 months before bottling. So yeah, really excited about this. Although it sounds like, again, we just released it and we're almost out.
It's been crazy
Yeah.
how fast this wine is moving. And I think it's mostly because it's delicious. Honestly, we've been making Viognier for a long time. And I think Molly's really, it is hard with this grape to find that balance of the rich, full texture and aromatics, but still having some elegance and lightness and acid. And turns out being really high maintenance pays off.
Yeah.
Because she has all those components to work with, and the final product is just gorgeous. And yeah, when we looked at this morning, there were 17 cases left out of about 220, which is, you know, selling wine is what we do, but I'm also very sad
Yeah.
because I want to be able to drink it for the next
Yeah.
year.
I
Yeah.
know, I gotta take some of this wine home.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think too that what's cool about your whites is that you and some other people that even some folks that buy fruit off you, you guys have really, you know, Paso Robles has kind of always been known for its reds. It's been known for its Rhones, for before that Zinfandel, but it's like the white wines of Paso Robles have really, really come into their own, I think, in the last 10 years. And you guys are definitely part of that leader conversation, and so exciting. And that's, you know, doing 4 picks in one lot. That's why it tastes so good.
Crazy. I am crazy sometimes. Not high
It's-
maintenance in
yeah.
life, but in the winery,
No.
yeah, it happens.
I can vouch. That is true. And it's been interesting. Just, you know, Molly was mentioning that we are going to transition a little bit of Grenache to some pick pool. So we're going from a little bit of red on the vineyard to a little more white. And we've just consistently seen demand for our wines is growing, and demand for the whites is growing really fast. And I don't know if the world is just discovering the quality of Paso Robles whites, but it's really cool to see. And we're really, really proud of what we're offering, and just keeps getting better every vintage.
Yeah. Yeah. So Viognier, just putting my nose and tasting it, always just gives those classic white and yellow flowers, lots of jasmine, lots of orange marmalade on this. I get that dried apricot, ripe peach. But then I think all that time on lees, there's no new barrels in this, but I think there was like one once used barrel in there. So I get a little bit of that like kind of brioche, and then I get this cool yuzu component that comes in. That's
Delicious.
makes it really kind of complex and layered. So fun one.
The best Viognier we've ever made here for sure.
Oh,
World class, I do believe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Agree wholeheartedly.
I love that. So yeah, getting into our GSM. So, you know, as I mentioned, I love Grenache. Oh, perfect. I didn't even have to try to remember the varietals. That is great.
Might be correct.
I know.
It is correct.
Looking
I
at the
can
bottle, you
confirm.
did that one right. Good job. So GSM is a really fun one. So this is a 2020. This is the first of my reds. We just, as I mentioned, I came on in 2020. So we've been kind of sharing whites and rosés with people for a while. But we just released with the spring shipment, the first lot of the 2020 Rhones. And so we do, just as like our main SKUs, I kind of went through our whites, but we do 2 main Syrahs, a GSM, and a wine called Sunworshipper, which is a Mourvedre based wine. The GSM is really fun because It's a blend of almost every red block on the property. So besides the Petite Syrah, it pretty much touches every other block that we have, which I love. So it's always the most difficult wine to blend for us. But in the end, I often find it's the most complex and layered, even though it's maybe more on the light to medium bodied wine. Maybe I should say medium bodied, I guess. Nothing from Alta
Nothing
Colina
light.
is too light, yeah. But this wine's really fun. I get a lot of the cherry cola. I get the kind of mulling into chai spices on this. I get this cool like cardamom cinnamon stick. But then there's like a lot of dried rose petals. The palette has a lot of just strawberry fruit leather and this just kind of long, endless finish. And one thing I always love about a good GSM is when you can just keep smelling it. And like each time you're just getting more nuances. It's like that basket of potpourri.
But the good kind.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a fun one.
And this wine, Dad, can you talk a little bit about, the reason we're in Paso Robles is Rhones. And I think a lot of, when you planted Alta Colina Vineyard, what were the wines that you envisioned coming out the other side? This is a leading question.
Well,
really.
yeah. So originally what I did was I tasted here people who were growing Rhones in Paso. I tried to identify the wines that I liked the best and the clones that were in those wines. And I targeted a wine, my favorite wine at the time, from a very famous, very well-known local winemaker. And upon discovering it was basically a GSM, what was in it, I planted accordingly. So I thought, I'm going to duplicate this son of a gun.
It's totally how wine works.
Yeah.
Never, it's so far, they're not the least bit alike. I think maybe sight might have something to do with it. Who knows? But yeah, that's how it came to pass. GSM is at the core of the whole program.
Yeah, this is one of the few wines, GSM and Syrah are things that we knew, and by we I mean Bob, that we would bottle. That you're able to work backwards a little bit when you know what you're trying to achieve. That really narrows the search in terms of soils, exposures, climate, and then Bob was able to drill down in his property search. And so this GSM is something we knew we were going to do upon purchasing this land and planting and beginning sort of the Alta Colina winemaking journey. And it's, again, not a creative name, but a really beautiful wine and something that we will always make. It's we presented you one red today, and it felt like a no-brainer for this to be one of them, or for this to be it, I guess.
I should also add, there's a difference in generation between the people that you see seated at the table here.
Yeah.
And I'm from that, maybe just a little bit early, it's kind of a little more of a competitive edge on that thing. So I enter these wines occasionally in competitions just to kind of, check out what's going on.
A conversation. This is an ongoing conversation. Anyway.
At any rate, GSM, Los Angeles Invitational, International, whatever, wine competition of about 2 months ago, double gold, best of class.
What about San Francisco? I thought we entered in that too, though.
Well,
Chronicle.
I don't talk about that one.
Oh, we only talk about the double golds.
That's right. There's got to be a double gold to get any airtime on this program. It
Yeah.
did well there. It did well, but
Yeah.
those folks, I think they were off that day. Maybe they had a bad bottle. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was them, not us. It's fine.
Anyway, end of ad.
Yes. But we hope that you're all enjoying the wines. And if there are any questions, please throw them out about us, our farming, the property, the wines, or we can just keep talking at you about things that we're interested in.
Mary Beth Bond has a question about going back to the trailer pond. She's wondering if those were Shastas.
One of them is a Shasta, Eagle Eyes. You are exactly right. They are 5 different trailers, and they all have incredibly cute names, one of which is the Shasta. And if you're just, on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or wherever we buy things these days, Shastas are the ones you see the most. And that first pink one with the wings tell you it's a Shasta. The one next to that is called the Kenskill. We've got the Terry, and then out of frame, there's a green one called the Aristocrat. And finally, there's a yellow one, which you can see in that lower, or yeah, you can see the Aristocrat, and the DeVille is the yellow in that bottom photo with the poppies. So each of the 5 trailers is unique. And for the most part, they are all original. So our 2, we really feel strongly about being hospitable and welcoming. However, no kids, no dogs at the trailer pond. It is not trivial to replace parts in these, being from the 50s and 60s. So we try to give ourselves a good shot at maintaining the classicness of these trailers going forward.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot more people actually renting all the trailers out at once. Yes, is that?
We are, and that's what I would do. So Molly and I are actually in a tasting group, and we're now just friends at this point. There are 8 of us. I'm the only non-winemaker, and they're nice to me.
She's our honorary member.
Yeah, so I'm like the interloper, but we are planning a little getaway in May. So the 8 of us are going to stay at the trailer pond, and it's really a perfect fit for one group renting all 5. Again, we always say, like, read those FAQs. It is camping, it's very cozy, shared beds. You can charge your phone, but you can't plug in a space heater. You'll blow the whole thing. It's shared bathrooms. It's a rustic experience, but it's one of those places where it's just instantly relaxing. It is absolutely beautiful. And if you care about wine and viticulture, it's kind of an unbeatable site to get to spend time.
And the special thing is that even though we are in the country here, we're 5 minutes to town. Mm-hmm. So it's still Uberable to dinner.
Yeah. It's like 10 minutes to downtown Pass Up.
Yeah.
So you can, go eat at a Michelin mentioned restaurant and then go drink wine by the fire at the trailer pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was asking, like, yeah, so you said shared bathrooms. You have a really cool bathroom setup. I mean,
it's genuinely a really wonderful bathroom. I'm very proud of it. Don't tell the county, that's what it is. It's a shed. But there are 2 bathroom stalls. It's flushing toilets. It's the whole thing. And then there's an outdoor shower with a little sort of privacy, I don't know, metal curtain thing. And it's truly sunrise, sunset. And we encourage our guests to have a little tromp around the vineyard. So people hike around. We have this beautiful viewing deck up on the vineyard where we host tastings by reservation during the day. But in the evenings, we really encourage our pond guests to kind of take over and just enjoy the space. So we call that the sundowner deck. It's a perfect place for morning coffee, morning yoga, glass of wine, a cocktail, or to just hang out. Bob is an avid crossword puzzle person, and that's the ideal spot for that sort of thing. Yeah.
it was like sort of an average cost per night for one trailer.
Weekends are $275 a night per trailer, and there is a 2-night minimum. And then during the week, it's $225 per night per trailer. And those have been the prices for about 5 years. We have not raised them, despite the very quickly rising costs of hotels everywhere. We wanted to keep that where it's been.
It's awesome. Well, cool. I think that's sort of like the last of the questions, unless anybody has anything else, and we're right at 4 o'clock, and
Did we
we've
forget
got a lot more wine to drink.
Yeah.
I know.
We really
good.
appreciate all of your time. Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in with us. We know everybody's really busy, and as everyone here, but we appreciate it. It's been really fun.
Thank you. all.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing your time. Also wanted our journalists, next time you're in Paso Robles, if you don't already know, you have an open invitation to come visit us at Alta Colina. We can't wait to host you.
That's right. And I will be
We
in your ears and
genuinely-
inboxes urging you to come. Need you to get you
Yes.
here.
Yes. We have
Some of you returning here.
Exactly. We have different experiences to offer. We'd love to get you up to the vineyard, put eyes on the trailer. That season is March to November. It's a really special place, and we feel like we're able to share it through the wines, but there's also no substitute for being here in person. So we'd love to see you.